Do you have constitutional questions? Get constitutional answers. We'll be answering your constitutional questions live, so get ready to call in now. Are you a prosecutor, law enforcement officer, or local government employee? Want to make sure you are executing the laws in a constitutional manner? Are you a city council member, township board member, or state legislator? Want to ensure the laws you pass are constitutional? Perhaps you're a citizen who wants to know the proper limits on government and the protections for your God-given liberties. Regardless of your role, call me, Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, with your constitutional questions during our live call-in show now at the phone number listed on the screen. And remember, together we can restore freedom.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Restore Freedom Weekly. I'm Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, and this is your opportunity to call in and ask live any legal or constitutional questions that you have. Now, keep in mind, I am licensed or admitted to practice in the United States Supreme Court, the Supreme Court, and all the state courts of Michigan, the two federal courts in Michigan, Saginaw Chippewa Tribal Court. Many years ago when I lived in Minnesota, I was also licensed to practice there. And I've also been admitted pro hoc vice in one of the federal district courts here in Florida. But so if you're outside of those jurisdictions, then what I will be able to do is just kind of guide you in the right direction. Of course, if it's a constitutional question of one of national implications, then I'll be able to talk about that at a little bit more specificity. But anyway, so hello and welcome to the show. I do have two special guests in the room with me today, which is kind of funny because I'm noticing, Jay Curvitt, you said, Catherine, take the dog out. And I was wondering if you guys could already see in here and if he was somehow on screen because the dog is actually in the room with me today. But he's not alone. He's joined by Emma, who's doing her schoolwork and will continue to do her schoolwork throughout the whole episode. So anyway, so hello and welcome to, let's see here. Oh no, our chat's not working. Oh, what is going on? Don't you love it when technology works? It's not working at all right now. So that's awesome. I'm just going to scroll through all of our options here. Nope, none of them are working. That's fantastic. So we're just going to leave it at that for now. I love to have the comments shown on the screen because first of all, those of you watching now as well as watching later, it makes it a little bit easier for you to see what's happening in the chat, especially if I end up getting a phone call or I'm answering some other question and I get on a roll and then I, of course, can't be talking in detail and answering things. Oh, one of them finally went through. Okay, so I don't know why, but maybe that's a sign that future comments will start to show up. So anyway, because I'm seeing there are quite a few comments that did not make it. So, all right, good. So far, two of them are showing up. So, hopefully they'll continue to populate on the screen just the same way as I could see them in the background here. So, all right. Anyway, so I do like to have that up, but I guess if it stops working, it stops working. We'll make do as we always do. So. All right, so hello to everyone who's in the chat. I don't, have a specific child. You can't be staring me down because out of the corner of my eye, I do see you and you're not getting your work done. Oh, the joys of homeschooling and working from home. All right, so I also just changed the setting to live chat instead of top chat, and we'll see if that helps as well. Emma, I'm not messing around. Get your work done. Normally she's in the living room doing her schoolwork during our show, but she hasn't been doing her best efforts at getting her schoolwork done recently, so she's in here. Anyway, all right, so what I'd like to do, as always, is really have you guys lead the conversation, because it's really, this is a show for you. The whole point of me doing this is to educate and inform and be able to help you guys, whether it's a particular sticky situation in life that you're dealing with that you just need immediate help and guidance, pointing in the right direction, or it's just, you are sick and tired of seeing we the people get screwed over, and you want to know what more you can do as a citizen, or if you think something, you've been watching your state or local government do something and it just doesn't feel right to you, and you're wondering, you want to know a little bit more about it, or better yet, you actually serve in state or local or even federal government, and you just want some guidance about the best way to handle something. That's what I'm here for. So with all that being said, until we get our first questions, and I know you guys have them, because it's usually at the end of the show that all of a sudden everybody has all these questions, and I'm like, that would be really great for you to ask at the beginning of the next episode, because usually by then it's almost 2:00 and I'm really hungry. So don't do that to me today. Ask your questions now while the line is open. Let me see if I can see if the other screens are, well, some of the chat is working. So until then, we'll just leave it like this. So the call-in number is 616-303-0093. So go ahead and give us a call with your legal and constitutional questions. In the meantime, and for those who have commented in the past, now I'm super self-conscious when I drink, when I'm drinking my pop through my straw, which I don't normally do, but I do it while I'm on the show because it's, less intrusive than me like chugging back a pop on camera. But anyway, when I do that, I've had people comment that they thought I was vaping or doing something else. I don't know enough about vaping to know how drinking out of a straw could look like vaping, but I guarantee you it is just pop. And it doesn't even have caffeine or color or calories at that. So anyway, so I know you guys have questions. Call in, at least throw them in the chat. But please call in or throw your questions in the chat, and we can get started on your topics that are important to you. In the meantime, I'll share with you what I've been thinking on and working on in the last, in the last few weeks, I guess. It's occurred to me that I don't really have a good, solid plan for... I'm a planner, right? I'm a planner. I am someone who likes to be focused. I'm very driven. I like to be organized. And I realize that I have several topics that are really important to me. I mean, quite frankly, the whole Constitution is important to me. But I also realize that I have quite honestly reached a certain level of being burnt out, and I need to keep going. And I also know that you guys are humans, just like me. And if you keep at this for too long and you keep at it, full charge for too long, you're also going to have your own level of being burnt out at this. And we can't afford to completely burn out on this freedom fight and standing up for our rights. So I think it's been a couple of years, maybe even 3 years since I talked about this, but I think it's really important that we take a step back and we get really intentional about our fight for freedom. So what does that mean? Well, my suggestion to you, and you could do it however you want, as long as you are being very intentional and not just like throwing yourself into everything. but be very intentional. And one way that could look is if you narrow down the topics that are important to you. Like I said, the entire Constitution is important to me. But I am finding it strange that not a single comment has come in the last 4 minutes, because you guys are usually chatting at least with each other, if not with me. So throw something in there just so I know it's continuing to work, because yeah, you never know with how things are going. So anyway, so for me, the whole Constitution is important, right? I am a huge Second Amendment advocate. Thank you, Blind Justice. I am a huge First Amendment advocate, right? The freedom of religion, the freedom of the press, the ability of the people to petition the government for redress of grievances. All that is entailed in there, right? The Third Amendment isn't as big of a thing these days, but obviously it's still important that it remains intact. Fourth Amendment issues, unreasonable searches and seizures and fighting against that. Hello, and yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you. So the, it's all those things are important. We also have government transparency, government accountability, what I like to term government accessibility, our ability to access government information, what the government is doing, be able to really see what is going on in our government and how can we hold them accountable. You can't really have governmental accountability if you don't have governmental accessibility. Not only that, but just being able to access your government for the services that you need. If you, when I lived in Marshall, Minnesota, the utilities were a city government thing. So my electricity and my water bill, everything was through the city. So if I ever had any issue with that, I needed to be able to have access to the local government, the appropriate people in local government to get those issues taken care of, right? Now we have our trash and recycling, things like that, water, that are done through the city, but electricity is a private entity. But nonetheless, what I do pay the city for, I need to be able to access them if there's any issues. If there's a disruption to the service, if there's something wrong with the bill, whatever the case is, right? So you need to be able to have that kind of access for the day-to-day stuff. If you have issues with Social Security or some sort of government things going on, you need to be able to go into a Social Security Administration office and speak to someone, right? So anyway, that is something that is important to me. But I've realized that I'm not, you know what, Black Quiver, just, I think today is going to be a good show. Hang in there just give me another 45 minutes, because I'm hoping that I'm going to be heading out from the show by then today, just because I'm doing a lot of work in the background for you guys on a big project, and I want to really get back into it. But anyway, so we are missing a lot of our usual crew. So what my recommendation for myself as well as for you is to narrow down so you're not so overwhelmed, because I'm looking at all the court cases as they come in. I have feeds that come in from the U.S. Supreme Court, from the Michigan State Bar as being a licensed attorney there. I get to see all the stuff coming in from the Court of Appeals and the Michigan Supreme Court. And, just seeing all kinds of policy things happening. There's obviously stuff happening every day in the Michigan legislature and here in the state of Florida, with the Florida legislature. There's Florida court cases. I'm signed up to see the new court cases coming down from the Florida Supreme Court. And quite frankly, it can be really overwhelming. And even when I read through, now I get a lot more information from Michigan just because I'm the Michigan State Bar. And unfortunately, Florida does not make it as easy for people that are not Florida licensed attorneys to be able to keep up to date on all the things happening in the courts of appeal and things like that down here, which is really a shame. It's a governmental accessibility issue. But it is overwhelming because even if I read through, 15 cases that have happened in the last couple days in Michigan courts, for example, I read through them all, and then I'm also processing going, okay, so what, there's a lot of issues in this particular case. How helpful, though, is the general public going to find this? How easily am I going to be able to break this down to let them know how this impacts them? And to what extent does this particular case really impact someone on a day-to-day basis? So there's all that going on. And I know for me, it can feel overwhelming because I don't want to put in 40 hours of work on reading a case and making notes and putting together a video and, doing all the editing and trying to trim it down and get it to something that, I think is, hey, this is going to be great and it's informative. And then I blast it out there and really most of you see the topic and you're like, oh, I don't know if that really applies to me, and you don't watch it. Or those of you that do watch it, you're like, oh, you know what? I don't think that's ever, I don't really care about termination of parental rights cases. My kids are all grown. I don't have anything to do with that. So I want to make sure my efforts are really helping you the best that they can. And so I'm trying to narrow down. I've done it before. I've talked about it before. And I find myself just I keep expanding and going, well, but they have to follow, the Constitution in all areas. So I was hoping to have time because I just thought about this like 30 minutes before the show today, and I just didn't have time to finish doing all the rest of the setup and then create a survey. But I think what I'm going to do is probably put out a survey and ask you guys what you think would be the most helpful to you, as well as what you think would be most helpful to the general public. And you might see those as two different answers, but what topics do you think would be most helpful, at least in 2026? In this year, what do you think would be most helpful to have me walk you through? Do you want me to try to focus on, Second Amendment stuff? Do you want me to help you try to focus on, one thing I've thought about is FOIA laws, Freedom of Information Act statutes. There's some federal ones. There's usually one in every state or multiple ones in every state. And how do those really play out? I can tell you the ones in Florida suck. I thought the ones in Michigan were bad until I really looked at the ones in Florida. And at least the ones in Michigan have certain deadlines and certain time frames. And yes, there's some exceptions, but they're spelled out in the law. And, it's a lot better. And if I have actually sued a governmental entity over violating FOIA before. And so when you have a better statute on the books, it enables you to really, it's got to have some teeth, right? Well, the one in here in Florida is basically nonsense. It's nothing. There's no deadlines. It's just written like, yeah, you can request records and yeah, they're supposed to give them to you. And that's about it. It doesn't say like really too much about, well, what happens if they don't give them to you? What happens if they're denying your ability to get that information? All that kind of stuff. So anyway, so one of the things I've thought about this year is trying to rewrite, I'll say air quotes, the perfect FOIA statute. And those of you who've been following me for 4 or 5 years by now already know that when I wrote the Restore Freedom Initiative petition that would have changed the Michigan Constitution, the state constitution in Michigan, there was a portion in there that actually covered FOIA. And it covered what kinds of things the government should actually be putting on their websites on a regular basis, the state and local government, the kinds of information that they need to put out there without even having someone request it. And quite frankly, this is not the 1970s, right? You shouldn't have to go physically to a library or go physically to your township or city hall to be able to get information about the day-to-day transactions of business, because quite frankly, most of the business is transacted on the internet in some way anyway. Very rarely is there going to be something where there's a contract or there's a report or there's something done where it's not already transmitted on the internet. Certainly it's going to be on someone's computer. It's at least on someone's local hard drive. because that's, I mean, there's just nothing that's a handwritten document anymore. There's nothing that's not produced without a computer in some way. So there's absolutely zero reason why local and state and county governments, the federal government as well, but like just to keep it a little bit more manageable, focusing on those state and local governments, there's no reason why their day-to-day operations should not automatically be somehow available to the public, certainly to their own citizens. So before I jump back in with more of those thoughts, I wanted to touch base. Okay, going to voicemail. Uh-oh. You know what? It's because look at that. I've had 1, 2, 3, 5 calls from 2 different phone numbers. Okay, so the 2 of you that have called, please feel free to call again, because it should be working now. Let me just put it that way. It should be working now. It was, what do you call it? Focused on. I mean, it's already logged in to this account, but I have different numbers on this app, and it was whatever. It was pointed to the other one, and for some reason it wasn't ringing then on this. So anyway, that is fixed. You guys can call the number. Yes, blind justice, you're commenting on something that I said a little bit ago, that you thought the Third Amendment was about preventing being forced to house soldiers, quartering, or something like that. And that's exactly why I said it's important, but it's just not as relevant in today's society. Hello, this is Catherine. Who am I speaking with?
Hi, Catherine. It's JC. How are you?
Oh, I am doing fine. I'm noticing my child is not doing her schoolwork, and she thinks I'm not noticing that she's not doing it, but I've been watching out of the corner of my eye the entire time. So thank you for telling me that it wasn't going through. Glad to know that people are actually calling in with questions today. So tell me what's up with you.
Well, I wrote you an email a couple months ago. You know, I have TIA, and they're getting worse. And what's happening is, I have 2 German Shepherd service dogs, and the ambulance service will not come to my home without a cop. And I don't want a police officer in my home. And they come in the house, and then I have to get my friend to chase them out, because I sit in my chair with my blanket, and I only have my underwear on. Quite embarrassing. I don't trust cops. You don't know what they're going to look around and gawk around in your home and stuff like that. So I read this case, Supreme Court case versus Montana. Police can enter your house only if they are trained in first aid. And they are animal control certified, which our police department doesn't even carry first aid kits in their cars. So my question is, I want to call the mayor. What should I say to the mayor? I don't want the cop in my house.
So what is animal, let me back up and try to understand this a little bit better, because I feel like I'm missing something. So what is, you said you have service animals, and you want animal control coming over?
No.
So what are they coming over for?
Good question. Why are the police coming over is because the mayor made a resolution, a memo. I saw the memo that when an ambulance goes to somebody's house, the cops have to go too. But I don't believe
an ambulance. Okay. So just Okay, so you have called, you or someone else on your behalf has called for an ambulance to assist you at times. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay, and so when the ambulance is there, then the cops are automatically going with them.
yes.
So a cop can automatically go with them, but that doesn't mean they have a right to enter your property.
Well, they're coming on my property and they're coming in my home gawking around.
Yeah, no, they need to leave. They have absolutely no right to be there.
Well, I've been pushing. I told the mayor that. I said I don't want them up at my house. He can stand out on the street if they need assistance, but no, he comes in the house and is our new chief of police. He's not a very good chief of police. I don't like him, and it's none of his business as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
To come into my house, and they have made the issue because my dogs are German shepherds, and they feel that the German shepherds are mean. My dogs aren't mean. They're service dogs.
right.
They're trained service dogs. They're not aggressive dogs. So the cop walks in here to make sure, where the dog is, and then he stands out there and he just gawks at the dog, which, gets the one dog excited because they're not used to black uniforms coming up here. But the question is, how do I resolve this when I've told the mayor I don't want the cops in the house, but they still come in the house?
I mean, I would put it in writing.
Okay.
I would put somehow put it in writing. Like if you have an email, can you find an email address for not only the mayor, but the police chief? And I would say whoever the custodian of records is for the police department, if they have some sort of clerk of records or, front desk assistant or something like that, I would also include that person. And then I would also, I assume that the municipality has inside counsel, and if they do, I would copy them on that as well, and just tell them
Okay.
that the police have absolutely no authority. It's one thing if they're on scene, like let's say there's a car crash, and they're sorry, I just realized I didn't have the right screen on. It's one thing if they are on scene and it's a car crash, and they're the first ones to respond, and so they're there and they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna do what I can to render aid, and oh my gosh, this car looks like it's starting on fire, and I need to get these people out, and they're going into someone's car to help, get them out safely so the car doesn't explode with them inside of it or something of that nature. Okay, quite an extreme example, but that's that makes sense that they're in the greater realm of first responders. And so sometimes, especially in rural areas, you have actual EMTs, you have other people. In Minnesota, when I was going to college, I lived in a very, very, very small area, and our county seat, where the courthouse was, only had 2,000 people. So you can imagine the community was quite small. My college boyfriend's mom was a first responder, not an EMT. The EMTs were actually, on the ambulances and had all of the equipment and had uniforms and everything. She was considered a first responder, where she, in her own vehicle with no uniform, just would usually be the first one out there before the ambulance could even make it out there, depending on the location. And so she would be out there to render the first aid until, like I said, until the ambulance, until a fire truck, until whoever else gets there. And so it makes sense that you kind of have to have a team of players all working together when you have emergency services that are needed. But it does not make sense for someone to, even in downtown Chicago, you have EMTs that are going and responding in calls and, you know, going into homes and offices and businesses and et cetera. And they don't have a police escort every time with them. It makes no sense to double up on the resources, and it's not like the cop is going there because he's getting to an emergency before the ambulance can get there. Like, he's 2 blocks down the road and they're 2 miles away and you're choking or whatever. You know what I mean? I mean, if that were the case, you don't care if you're just sitting in your house in your underwear, right? If you're dying and he's the first one that makes it there, you just want, it could be a neighbor that's going to walk in off the, you know, somebody, whoever's going to save your life. That's what we're talking about. But that's not the scenario when they are accompanying first responders, or EMTs, or, you know, whatever. That's not the same scenario. So, I would make it a letter, you know, put it in writing and say that they are absolutely not invited. Make it perfectly clear. I would use the words, no law enforcement officer has permission to be on my property without a warrant. And just make it that clear and say this is not limited to, but specifically does include situations where I have called for medical assistance and they come out and are entering my home with the medical personnel and they have no reason to be there. They are not welcome in my home. They are not welcome on my property. They are not to be at my property for any reason whatsoever unless I have specifically asked for law enforcement to respond, such as in, you know, someone is holding me at gunpoint and I've called 911, that kind of scenario. Do you know what I mean? So I would make that very clear. I'm just making myself a note so I can figure out how to describe this topic later on in the description of the video. So that's what I would do if I were you.
That, you know, what bothers me is, and I don't get along with this chief of police, and I don't trust them, and cops do the craziest things. They can do anything. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't trust cops either, unfortunately. There are some good ones, but especially when it's your own home, that's a whole new heightened level of, you should be able to feel the utmost safe and secure in your own home. And, you know, if you have a cop in there and all of a sudden the cop is like, oh, well, it's in plain view that you have X, Y, or Z. And it's like, whoa, no.
Yep.
You didn't have the right to be in my home. I don't have to deal with this because I called for help, you know, because I had a medical need. That's not appropriate. So I would put it in writing. And like I said, it's best if it's email, because then they can each see who is all getting it. And you would maybe even put who you are, you know, addressing right, you know, in the meat of the email. You know, it's a little bit different than like a normal letter when you're just typing up a business letter, but in the body of the actual email, in that part of it, I would say, you know, I am including, you know, the city attorney, I'm including the chief of police and the front desk clerk to the, you know, my dog is having a dream in the background. He's making weird noises. The mayor, and, you know, to make sure that everybody is on the same page, that my rights are not to be violated anymore. And the law enforcement has no right to set foot. They are not welcome. They have no permission, is the phrase to use, to be on my property for any medical reasons. They are only to respond if I have requested for law enforcement type of services, such as, you know, I'm being held at gunpoint. Just make it very clear to them about that.
And I also wanted to bring up the fact too that we were, you know, having a conversation. I didn't get to talk to you the last time, but 6 years ago, my neighbor tried to murder me with his car. And he hit me with the car pretty good 4 times on my own property. And the cops came up, and I had got a new survey because I own acreage. And the cops came up, sided with him. And that's when that really changed my thing. And going through the court system, and then I got PTSD from being hit by the car. And I had my gun on me, Catherine, and he's lucky I didn't shoot him.
Yeah. I mean,
and
it's crazy that he's hitting you with his car and they're siding with him. I mean,
they sided with him.
Things, yeah.
Yeah, because I started video every time I had an interaction with the cops. My brother taught me this because he hangs around with the first auditors in Florida. He lives in Florida. Just get a cell phone, Jerry. He says, get a cell phone. I could make a movie out of the times I filmed the cops doing stuff and siding with other people on my property.
Well, it looks like we have some follow-up questions about your situation. And you know how the technology works on me, it scrolls. So I just want to make sure, did you have any other questions for me on this? Otherwise, I do want to follow up on these additional questions about the situation too.
No, I'm done.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Good. That's good advice, and I will do it.
Okay.
And send it off to all of them.
Yep, and I'll obviously make sure you're keeping your copy. Then utilize, when you can, utilize a program that will tell how many times they've opened something. In fact, I need to make myself a note about that because I was using a program that did that, and I've actually used that as evidence in my appellate court findings or court cases. So I need to make sure that program is still on. Every now and then stuff just shuts off on its own. So, all right. Well, sounds good. Thank you so much for calling in with that.
Okay,
and
thank you, Catherine. Appreciate it.
Yes, you're welcome. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Okay, so Lori, I'm assuming you can hear me right now. I think you've actually asked maybe a couple of questions that I don't know if they came from other people, and you were just repeating them for me, but make sure that I'm answering them because I was going to ask you to repeat it, and I think this one looks different than the one I had seen prior. So the question that Lori was posing, when addressing the ambulance and the cops, will a person with a service dog be required to provide proof of service dog credentials? I don't know what there might very well be this sounded like a local rule, right? May even be, I think she may have said it was an ordinance. I don't remember if it got, arose to that level of actually being put in place into an ordinance. But, you might have something where it's an ordinance on the books. You might have a state statute somewhere on the books. You might have a county provision. You might just have a book of rules or regulations, so to speak, that the agency is operating under, where they supposedly come up with any of these things. Regardless of where that is, though, if you are in your own home and you have, say, called 911 or someone has called 911 on your behalf because you need medical attention and you have a service animal, you don't have to prove shit. I don't care what the laws say. If there is supposedly a law on the books that says in order for what? In order for them to come and render aid, that you have to prove that you're, let me put it this way. I have a dog. He's in this room right now. Obviously so aggressive that we heard him. You may have heard him. I at least heard him while she was on the phone. He's a golden retriever. If you know anything about golden retrievers, they are, one of the snuggliest, most energetic, crazy, but in a lovable kind of way, dogs. But he's also very protective. So when you have, if the mailman is putting something on my porch, and he senses it, he's going to bark. He's going to say, Mom, there's somebody here. Mom, there's somebody here. There's somebody here. That's what he's telling me. So, and that's what he's supposed to do. I mean, quite frankly, that is what a dog is supposed to do. But he's not a service animal. And if I, slice open my leg and I'm bleeding out on my kitchen floor and I have a dog, what are they going to do? Say we're not going to render aid because you have a dog and the dog is not a service animal? It's not illegal to have a dog. Even if I had some sort of exotic animal that it was illegal to have, what are they going to do? Are they going to say, well, the mere fact that you have an animal that you're not licensed to have means we're not going to render aid? Bullshit. That's not what their job is. That has nothing to do with their job. And I would have the same philosophy if I needed physical, assistance. I would maybe, depending on the factors involved, right? But if it was clear that there's not like a perpetrator where the scene needs to be secured by some sort of law enforcement personnel, if it's clear that's not what the call is, like I'm choking or something, okay, where it's not somebody doing something to me, then if I saw law enforcement coming through my door and there's also already medical personnel on the scene, so law enforcement isn't there because they got there first and they're helping me to not die because there's already medical personnel on scene, you better be damn sure I'm going to say, you need to get the hell out of my house. You don't have a warrant. Get out. You have no reason to be in my house. I did not call and ask for police assistance. I asked for medical assistance, and there are other medical professionals here rendering that medical assistance. So I know in the comments earlier, somebody had said something like, well, sometimes they bring additional people, if they need to lift somebody up off the floor or something of that nature. But quite frankly, that's in the vast majority of situations, you have a 2-person crew on an ambulance, and those 2 people are trained to be able to get someone off the floor. Now, if we're talking about a 600-pound man, okay, you might need additional resources for that. But if you're talking about the standard call, you have an adult between 100 and 200 pounds, those 2 people, those 2 EMTs or whatever, ambulance professionals, that's part of their training. That's part of their job. If they can't get the standard person off of the floor onto a stretcher and on, into the ambulance if need be, then they're not capable of doing their job. So, I have a lot of respect for that profession, but so this isn't a knock on those professionals. I don't think that's an excuse that they would come up with. I think it's an excuse that suits behind a desk or the police chief or a mayor, perhaps, such as in her example, are coming up with for, extra reasons why police resources, number one, need to be wasted. Why are the police not available and out responding to actual, law enforcement situations? And it's a way for them to try to have their foot in the door and invade people's privacy. And that's no. And there are no exigent circumstances. There are absolutely 0 exigent circumstances for a police officer to be present on the scene for a medical emergency that is clearly a medical emergency when there already are ambulance or medical professionals on scene. I mean, like I said, if there's that rare instance where there's that exception and the medical professionals have radioed for help, they're saying, hey, we need backup, we need additional hands to be able to get debris off of someone, or we have a patient, you know, who's 600 pounds and we need additional manpower to get this person into the ambulance as quickly as possible. That's a different scenario. That's not at all what we're talking about. So there are absolutely no exigent circumstances. And we shouldn't take that kind of bullshit lying down either. Okay, so I'm not trying to, shoot, I hate when it jumps like that. If I have skipped you and you have a question, let me go back. Okay, if I have accidentally skipped you and you have a question, you know, please, by all means, jump back in and ask the question again. You know, if you've been on this show before, you know that the program I'm using, it jumps around. And so I'm scrolling gently so I don't skip anybody, and then all of a sudden it goes. Okay, so there's no way I'm already at the bottom because I've seen a ton of comments come in. It must have skipped a whole bunch. Okay. So, yeah, it did. Sorry, guys. Okay. It did. It skipped a whole bunch. If you guys had a question, please throw it in again at the bottom because I'm trying to go back and see. Question. Okay. So John asked, what are the basics for writing a civil complaint in the district court? This is going to sound strange, guys, but I have to untie my shoe. It's cutting off circulation in my foot. Anyway, oh, thank you, doggy, for helping me. That's what golden retrievers are for. If you have a shoelace or a shoe that you need help with, they are there. Okay, so I'm going to switch this to this one. Not that we have a caller on, but I'm answering the question. So, okay, what are the basics for writing a civil complaint in district court? And dog, you cannot help me answer this question. And forgive me, John. I feel like I should know this. I don't remember if you're from Michigan or not. That would help me a little bit. You making your debut? Okay. Well, everyone, this is Maverick, the golden retriever, who is now making his debut in the freedom fighting question answering world. All right, so a civil complaint. Dog, you have been so good. Don't do this now. Okay, civil complaint in district court. Okay, basics for writing one. So that's a simple enough question, but it would help me enough to know if it is a, and let me just double check to make sure. Okay, it looks like, okay, oh, but there's another question? No. Okay, so I think I was able to catch all the questions, but, okay, so, I was just hoping that John was going to answer. Did I miss if John answered? If you're in Michigan, okay, so I'm just going to try to give you some general, but also with Michigan as well. Now, keep in mind, this is again the reminder that I'm not admitted to practice in every single state. And in fact, I'm not even admitted to practice in the state courts here in Florida. I've just been an unwilling participant. So if you are writing a civil complaint in district court, what are the basics for that? Well, it really depends on the cause of action. What is the cause of action? Are you writing a divorce complaint? Are you suing someone for a breach of contract? Are you suing them? Is it a governmental entity and you are suing them for violating your, denying your, or just not responding to your FOIA request? So with all that being said, it's a little bit hard to give you too many specifics without knowing what kind of complaint, because that's your beginning point. That's where you need to start with. What is your cause of action? And I'm trying to keep, sorry, targeted patent. Okay, there we go. If it helps, a lawyer strung me along when I served a letter of intent in Colorado. Okay, so Colorado, so it's not in Michigan. That just helps give me a little bit of context. So I don't know what the procedures are there. So as far as what is your first step, you say a letter of intent. I'm assuming that means you served a letter of intent to sue. And that's sometimes required by state statutes. Oftentimes it is not. It just depends. And I don't know the particulars in the state of Colorado. But anyway, so sometimes you have a precursor before you can even get to the point of filing the complaint. Generally speaking, though, in most states, you have two documents that are the beginning of a court case. You have a summons and a complaint. And it's really the complaint is first, but the summons is the thing that tells the other side you have to come to court or you have to respond because I have started this case against you and the case is encapsulated in this complaint. So the meat of the case is actually in the complaint, and the process is begun through the summons. That's just telling them, when and where to be there, that kind of thing. So, and John says he's suing the city and police department over body cam footage. And again, it depends. I don't know what you're talking about there. Are you suing them to get a copy of it? Are you suing them because you are in it and they have misused it in some way? What is the scenario? Have you been charged with a crime and they have body camera footage that they are not turning over to you, which could be exculpatory evidence? I mean, there's a whole bunch of different scenarios with that. But assuming let me get back to just kind of saying, when you start with that complaint, that is the first, usually in most jurisdictions, that is the first document where it's the meat of the case. You're saying, this is what I'm suing someone for. And in a lot of jurisdictions, all you have to do is plead the main aspects. You don't have to prove every single element of that. The proof comes later out, in the course of the trial or other legal documents. In most states, in some jurisdictions, it may very well be that you have to be very particular and specific in your pleadings, in your complaint, in order to not have it dismissed right off the bat. But generally speaking, if you're at least alleging this is this is the cause of action, and I am a victim, or some other phrase, I am a party to this contract, for example, and the other person is the party to a contract, and I am alleging that they have breached that contract, and so therefore I'm suing for breach of contract damages, and I'm asking for the court to award me $75,000. That'd be an example. You have to be specific enough that the court can know what the heck is going on here, and specific enough that the other side has it's notice pleading. That's what a lot of jurisdictions are. It's called notice pleading, that you're putting the other side on notice of what you are pleading. You are giving them notice of what the situation is that you are bringing them to court for. And with that, I just want to pause and read some more of the specifics that John was explaining here. The fact that the attorney entered into the agreement, wouldn't that constitute an ethics violation? I feel like I missed something. Not releasing footage to the public in general. Okay, not releasing footage to the... Okay. Yes, Lori, I saw that you just put that question. If you can help me get back to that question, I want, as soon as I'm done answering John's question, I'd like to do that. So just if you can help me stay on top of the question that you just reiterated for me there in just another minute. So they're not releasing footage to the public in general. So I'm assuming that there's some sort of FOIA statute in Colorado that you have requested to get the information from the public body, and that they are denying that footage being released. Again, it really depends on what it looks like. Shoot, I will try to tell you what. If you can remind me, send an email to me, contact@restorefreedomkh.com, contact@restorefreedomkh.com. Send me an email. Keep it very short and sweet so that I can get back to you quicker. The longer they are, the more my brain feels overwhelmed and I put them off. Okay, just to be honest. But if you just keep it short and sweet and just ask me to send you a copy of the complaint where I sued the city manager. That's all you have to ask me. I will dig that up. I intend to put all those documents on the website, so these are all available to you guys as examples. I just haven't had time. It's not on there yet. I mean, it's a case that I was involved in 10 years ago, but I wasn't putting these kinds of documents on my law firm website initially. So now that it's freedom fighting focused from my law practice, I'm trying to go back and put older documents on there so you guys have those as examples as well. So if you can ask me for that complaint. Now, I did sue her. I think there were 7 causes of action. She did a whole bunch. I mean, I sued her for intentional infliction of emotional distress. I sued her for violation of equal protection. I sued her for violation of due process. I sued her for denial or improper response of a FOIA request. It at least is one of the 7 or 8 causes of action. So you can, by and large, mostly ignore a lot of what I put in there, except for you can hone in on that FOIA request, and that'll be an example. Now, keep in mind that you might see me say, I believe what I did, this is 10 years ago, but off the top of my head, I believe what I did is I laid out all the facts, because usually you lay out the facts and then you lay out the law. You kind of give a summary and then you give the facts and then you give the law for each cause of action. And I believe what I did is I laid out the facts in the facts section in separate numbered paragraphs. And then when it came to that particular cause of action, then I said, I'm incorporating by reference paragraphs number 2 through 20 herein. So you might want to look back and see what it is I was referencing, because that would be part of it. And as though it were, if I were only suing just for that FOIA response. So that would be my best specific example to give you. And if you have any follow-up questions or feel like I didn't quite answer what you were going for here, please follow up, shoot another follow-up question in the chat and I will answer you, but that might be the best at this exact point to get you going on the right track. And then, sorry guys, I'm just scrolling to see. As far as the ethics violation, I didn't see, I feel like there might have been chat, or maybe you had a comment you deleted, or it was much farther back and you're referencing it, but I didn't see what ethics violation you were talking about. Okay, and so then Lori was reposting a question from Dave. The people are the government, and combined, we are the state. The executive branch prosecutes on behalf of the people, while the judicial branch is judges. Okay, I don't see what the question is. I don't know if I'm just missing it. I'm reading it more as a statement. So if you could clarify, Dave, with what your question is, that would be awesome. Okay, and John says, the attorney entered into an agreement with me and has yet to produce the body camera footage that I requested. Again, without having the specifics of what the agreement really entailed and what the context of this agreement was it, had you already started a lawsuit? Or perhaps, if I'm picking up enough of what you're putting down, you sent the, I'll just say the city attorney for that municipality or their inside counsel or outside counsel, regardless, their counsel. You sent them a notice of intent to sue them for violating your rights to have access to certain information through something like a FOIA statute. And they responded to you, and that communication ended up resulting in an agreement with where they would go ahead and produce the video footage to you or for you. And they have not followed through on that or provided that footage. If that is correct, then there may very well be something to that where you could report it to the Colorado Bar Association or whatever entity overlooks attorney discipline for the state of Colorado. But, and I'm just making myself notes. I can't even spell discipline right now. That's okay. So what, but I mean, that's not necessarily going to resolve the issue at hand. Most likely that's going to be a scenario where it's like, it's not going to help you get what you need, but it's going to be hopefully them admonishing or punishing or whatever the attorney to make sure that they're not doing it in the future. Okay, I just tried to call, or just try to answer that call. As soon as I hit answer, then it hung up. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But I think I know what it is because the person who's calling, I'm pretty sure, is our good friend from Michigan who has had phone issues before. So let's see if we can get it to work. Hello? Ah, yes, I heard just enough of his voice to know that that is who I thought it was, and hopefully he'll be able to call back. I know last time he said he went outside and was able to get better reception, so maybe that. Is it going to work? Can you hear me?
Yeah, let's try it again here. This is John Q. Public in the chat, ma'am. Anyways, I'm going to make my question really short today. In Michigan right now, we're having a problem where precinct delegates are getting kicked off of going to convention. And the state party is basically saying that these are not elected positions, even though precinct delegate is an elected position. So I wanted to find out what is involved in filing a lawsuit, either against the county party or the state party for not allowing you to represent for the people in your precinct that you were elected to.
That's very interesting. Let me see if I can find something really quick. Okay.
Yep.
So you were talking about... And I'm looking for a document.
I guess I can explain for people that are in the chat that in Michigan, state of Michigan, we have precinct delegates that get to vote for our attorney general and our secretary of state and the different college regents. And we have individuals that get elected at the local level, and they get to vote at the county party convention for Republican or Democrat for those candidates, and then they get elevated to the state convention to go and cast their vote for those individuals.
Okay, so I myself served as a precinct delegate in 2 different jurisdictions when I lived in, obviously one at a time, but I'm just looking for...
And what's interesting, ma'am, this is happening to a gubernatorial candidate right now who is currently running in the state of Michigan for governor as a Republican. And he got kicked off by their county party. I'm not going to say what county, but their county party here in Michigan. And our illustrious GOP chairman is not doing anything about it.
So why not tell us what county party? I'm interested in this.
Okay, well, fine. Genesee County.
Genesee County? Okay.
Yep, Genesee County.
Which is Flint area, the water crisis for those of you outside of Michigan. So
yeah, this individual specifically is on the border of Grand Blanc and Atlas.
Okay. And I apologize, you guys, that this is taking me a little bit of time. But I wanted to get the actual information. I mean, like, I have very specific information available to me if I can just get it found.
If you remember, ma'am, this is kind of the same thing that they were doing to the grassroots individuals in Macomb County, and they kind of tried to do this to the people last convention to the people in Kalamazoo County. that were grassroots.
Okay, so I don't know why I can't find it. Maybe I never scanned it. So in Michigan, and I think you said some of this, but I don't know where I would have this. I saw it recently, but at any rate, so in Florida, it's a different story. Okay, it's a totally different scenario in Florida, and it's let me see if I can minimize this. It's not going to let me minimize this very well. Trying to do two things at once. I used to be much better at that, but the kids sucked all my brain capacity out. So anyway, in Florida, when I first came down here, and Mike and I went to, we were invited to come to the county executive board meeting, the Volusia County Republican meeting. And we were told what the setup was. Basically, there's a little bit of where you're voted in, but it's different. Let me just put it this way for those of you who live in other jurisdictions, that in Michigan, you literally have to fill out an affidavit of identity when, like, just as though you're a candidate for state rep or township trustee or governor or whatever, you have to fill out an affidavit of identity and have it notarized. So I'm looking at my 2020 precinct delegate affidavit of identity that I filed when I lived in Georgetown Township, Hudsonville. And you are a candidate, and you are in fact voted on by the people. You are in an elected position. And it is all done as part of state law. There's nothing in the party rules that gets to change that. It's actually written into state law how precinct delegates are selected, at least for the two major parties in Michigan. Minor parties are handled a little bit differently under Michigan election law. So at any rate, once you are elected to that position, that is a precinct delegate where you are then given a spot at the in your county politics, so to speak. Then you have your county politics. You are then electing people to go to your district, your congressional district representation. And then from there, you have people that are elected to be on state committee and things of that nature. You also have people that are elected to, through that process that I was talking about, that are elected just to be delegates at state convention. And I don't remember how many, but it's there. You know, there's a limited number of seats. So of all of the precinct delegates you have in your county, for example, there's a much smaller number that are delegates to the state convention, and then you have alternates to the state convention in case that person gets sick that day or something. And so, at any rate, the being a state delegate is not as direct of an elected position. They are elected by other precinct delegates, but you are not directly elected by voters to be a delegate to state convention like you are to be a precinct delegate. And so what you are saying, John, is that the people are being stopped from being a state delegate. What exactly is it? People were already in place as a delegate and then are being denied the ability to fulfill that role?
Yeah. So people have been elected to be a precinct delegate, to go to county convention, and then to be elevated to go to state convention as a primary or as an alternate, or I'll throw another word into the mixer, but doesn't really apply, is a hard-working delegate, you know, a hard-working Republican or hard-working Democrat.
We're not going to confuse anyone. We'll pretend that term does not exist, because outside of Michigan, it does not really. So
Right. So to answer your question about the slots, okay, and I said slots meaning positions, not the other word. There are 500 available in Macomb, and there's 500 available in Genesee. There's only 300 people that ran for those positions. So there's plenty of them available. There's no reason to kick anybody off a position.
Now you're talking about precinct delegate at that point when you're saying,
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
So
When you go to state convention, there are 500 positions available, and same as you go to the county. And only in those two counties I know of for certain, there's only about roughly 300 people that ran and are now duly elected precinct delegates. So pretty much every precinct delegate, for at least the Republican side, which is what I'm concerned with,
right.
Should be going to not only the county convention, but their state convention.
Well,
instead,
okay, that's not necessarily true because you're talking about, the whole county. So again, this might be totally different in other areas, but in Michigan, I can tell you, and just to kind of more explain this in more detail for those people outside of Michigan, so it makes more sense to them. But in Michigan, the way that it works is you have different, I'll just say different zones. So when I first became a precinct delegate, Mike and I became precinct delegates when we lived in the city of Belding. We lived in the city limits, which was, the city of Belding is in Ionia County in Michigan. And so Ionia County was actually really full in some areas, but our particular precinct, there were none. There were no precinct delegates. So when we first got elected as precinct delegates there, I can't remember, I want to say it was 2012. But when we first got elected as precinct delegates there, we weren't elected, we were appointed because the election had just passed and it was getting ready to be the next meeting. So at the very next meeting, they got our information from us, and then the county board, the county Republican executive committee was able to vote to have us fill those particular vacancies. So
right, because you were that phrase that you told me not to mention.
No, has nothing to do
okay.
with that. No, it's just because it was an opening.
Okay.
So if you have a vacancy, they are able to fill it outside of an election cycle because it's a vacancy. And I won't go into all the specifics about that, but that's how we were initially brought in. And then at the next election, then we were put on the ballot and we were voted in for the same position. And then when we moved, we were on the ballot and we were voted in for the same position, et cetera. And so I have actually had voters vote for me as a precinct delegate, but initially I was appointed to that position because it was a vacancy. Just the same, if you think about it, there's a lot of other vacancies that are created, like when Trump was pulling people for members of his cabinet once he got elected, and then it was leaving vacancies. Sometimes there would be a special election, and other times, depending on the position, that vacancy, it was just appointed, like a judgeship would just be appointed until the next election. So at any rate, so when you have that, so my point is that you can have an area where in our particular zone in the city of Belding, it was wide open. There were vacancies. However, that doesn't mean that anybody in Ionia County, because our zone had vacancies and a few other zones had vacancies, if you looked at the total numbers, it might have appeared that there were, let's say, 100 spots available in Ionia County, and let's say only 60 people were on the ballots that year for, submitted an affidavit of identity to run as a precinct delegate. That does not mean all 60 automatically are in, because if 10 of them are all running in the same zone where there's only 4 openings, that means only 4 of them will win. And you can't have the other 6 that didn't win somehow fill in for that same zone, because you wouldn't have adequate representation. You can't heavy load and just say, well, it's good enough because they're all still within the same county. So in Genesee County, there's a lot of super rural areas, but there's also, Flint, for example, that is heavily populated. So the city of Flint is going to have quite a few seats allotted to it in that greater, if you said it was 500, I would assume it'd be quite a few, it's going to be a big ratio of that 500 seats is going to go to the city of Flint. But quite frankly, we know a lot of Republicans don't live in the city of Flint. Not a whole lot.
No, that's
So,
Libtartville.
if you are looking for precinct delegates from the city of, from the township of Flint, my father-in-law and his new wife live there now, but and they're conservatives. But
Yeah.
but anyway, so just keep that in mind that before, and I hadn't heard anything about this, so I don't know any of the specifics. I just want you to be aware that the county might have, you might have 300 people that are all, that registered to be a precinct delegate as Republicans, where there are 500 openings, but they might not all be eligible because some of them might have overlapped, you know what I mean, in those particular zones. And they might have front loaded too many people running in that particular zone, leaving other zones without any representation. So that's just something to keep in mind. But as far as a county party or whoever else, a member of state party or whatever, saying that a county precinct delegate not being an elected position, unless there was some drastic change to election law in Michigan since I left, that's total bullshit. And I wish I could remember. So back in 2020, when there was a bunch of local, obviously, and national and state political stuff going on, it was just a bad year overall in Michigan. I was brought in by the then chair of the Ottawa County Republican Party to deal with some discrepancies and things that were going on. And they were pulling a lot of shenanigans. The establishment was trying to pull a bunch of garbage. And they were trying to say that different parts of state law had nothing to do with the workings of the Republican Party, because the Republican Party is a private entity and all this nonsense. And I wrote specifics in my emails and letters back to them about how that might in general seem like it would be common sense, but in the state of Michigan, it has become part of government. Everything about, at least for the two major parties, is, how they run state conventions and what spots are voted on in state conventions, and how you can become a precinct delegate and when those are voted on and when the county conventions are and all those other things. All those things are put actually into state law. So they can't claim that they're just some private entity and don't have to follow the laws. They do. So they're morons. They don't know what they're talking about, which doesn't surprise me. So I would
was actually in part of the letter too, was saying again that the GOP or the DNC is a private organization. Well, you can't be private if you're having a public election for precinct delegates.
I'm sorry, say that last thing again.
Okay, if you're having a public election using public tax dollars to put names on a ballot, for them to be voted on by the public, then it's not a private organization.
Yeah, well, there's at least it. I won't even go into whether it's a private organization or not at this exact point, but that was my argument I made in 2020, is that it's at least a quasi-governmental entity, because it is the inner functions of who gets to serve in what roles is actually mandated by state law, which is not the same when it comes to, if you wanted to start up my business. I have a Michigan corporation. I could put anybody in as president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, whatever. I don't have to follow any kind of, specifics other than I'm a law firm, so ownership interests can't be anyone who's a non-attorney. But that's a different problem. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. But anyway, so yeah, so I think I answered your question. But did you have a follow-up question about that? Or now I will clarify, when it comes to matters of being elevated, I don't remember how specific state law is on this. I believe that state law is still specific and talks about what the procedures are. It's not so much that it's a public election at that point, because voters, the general public, is not voting on who goes to state convention as a delegate. But there is a proper procedure that they have to follow, and certainly the MIGOP rules, I'm trying to think of what the acronym, it doesn't matter. The MIGOP rules, I'll just put it that way, that they put into place every election cycle, they have to follow that when it comes to how they select the delegates to state convention. So if I know when I was in Ionia County, well, actually when I served as precinct delegate in both counties, they were corrupt. The leadership had been in place for a long time, and they didn't like to follow the law, and they didn't like to follow the state convention or the the rules by the state committee for how county conventions were supposed to be run. It was a shit show, and so the best you could do is make sure you're very familiar with Robert's Rules of Order and make your point of order, make your motions, do whatever you need to do. And have it, so to speak, on the record out there, and just make notations that way. And then if there's any issues, they need to be brought up with the state party officials right away afterwards. Because if you wait too long, then you essentially sat on your rights, because it's a timely matter. It's an elections are a timely matter. So. Anyway, so
I guess my follow-up question was along the lines of my initial question. Is this actionable by those precinct delegates that were duly elected but not able to cast their vote as representing for those that are in their precinct that were duly elected? Is that actionable?
So they were stopped from participating in county convention.
They're going to be stopped. We haven't had convention yet. Convention's coming up here on the 26th. Which is Thursday.
Oh, okay.
They were notified that they will not be allowed to attend, and that the sergeant of arms will prevent them from entering. And if they do try to enter, that police or law enforcement will be called to remove the individual by force.
But they have their certificates from the county clerk that said that they were elected into that position?
Yes. Yep.
Well, it is a state crime to prohibit an elected official from performing their duties. Okay. So they need to, I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but they need to find that, especially as it relates to elections. There's also election law specific counterparts to that thought. And they should be prepared with have their ID with them and their certificate of, from the county clerk showing that they were duly elected. And have they should also have all that information in an email back to whoever wrote them the letter, the chair of the county party, I guess, I don't know, and let them know that they will in fact be there, and that they will be that the county party and the sergeant of arms will be criminally responsible and subject to arrest if they violate, and again, look up the statutes in Michigan that prohibit the person from fulfilling the duties of their office.
Are there any civil penalties involved in that, or is it just criminal penalties?
I don't know, but really, and you said it's this Thursday?
Yeah, convention is this Thursday.
And when did they get this notice?
The notice is usually given about at least 2 weeks ahead of time, but sometimes it's a month early, but it has to be a minimum of 2 weeks.
No. When did the people get their notice that they were not allowed to participate?
Oh, just within this week.
Okay, so today or yesterday?
Just within the beginning of the last week, I'm sorry. Yeah, because today's a Tuesday, so yeah, just within the last week here. So
it might already be too late, but in theory, they would want to file an emergency cause of action in the circuit court. Okay. And I don't know, off the top of my head, I don't know what the cause of action would be, but to have an injunction put in place that would prohibit the other elected officials from prohibiting them as precinct delegates from, doing their duties. And because they have something in writing saying that they're going to be prohibited from doing their duties, it should be enough to bring to court, especially since, again, this is not just a private enterprise. This is something that they were elected people, they're elected by the public to serve a particular purpose, and they have duties to fulfill. So that's what I would do. They would need to get on it like today to be able to have a court do something about it today or tomorrow or at the latest before convention on Thursday. But that's what I would do. As far as if they wait till afterwards, I don't really know really what there would be. I mean, I guess they could, I don't know, because I don't remember, I don't have all that part memorized of election law and how things work in Michigan. It's possible that that they might be able to file something saying, we need to set aside and redo county convention, but I highly doubt that that would be the result. But if they did try to file anything afterwards, I would file it like the next day. I mean, I wouldn't wait. By Monday at the latest. But, you have things going to the next, you know what I mean? It would need to be corrected before, would give the courts enough time to do something about it so the right people could be put in place for state convention. So, but the best would be to try to do something about it ahead of time. And regardless, they should also, like I said, show up and, and have their credentials with them and have the law printed out. So
the filing would be an emergency hearing to be heard at the circuit court because it's having to do with election law.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I will pass that information on.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
Okay, guys. So much for doing kind of a quick show today, but let me see. I'm just going to go ahead and try to jump over here to some of the other comments. Okay. Okay, I think you guys were just talking with each other and not so much having questions for me, unless it jumped again, because I swear there were comments going back and forth and all of a sudden I don't see any. Yeah, it looked like for a while. Anyway, so hopefully that was helpful to you guys. I do want to leave you guys with the, I'm going to go ahead and put our, there we go. Nope. Wow. What happened here? There we go. Sorry, guys. So I do, I'm going to have the links that I'll briefly talk about in just a second, but I wanted to wrap up by saying, make sure you guys are you're being intentional about your time and what you want to do. If Second Amendment issues are, man, that is like just the most important of all your issues, then really hone in and focus on that and pay more attention to ways that your local government, your county government, your state government is trying to step on your rights and be more vocal at legislative hearings, at, whatever way that might look like. Make sure you're reading the court cases that are coming out from the high courts in your jurisdiction on various issues, and the U.S. Supreme Court cases. If everything First Amendment is super important to you, then make that your focus this year. If you're more of a, criminal law person, then, Fourth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, whatever, then Eighth Amendment, try to narrow down your issues as best you can. Just so that you're not overwhelmed and you could be more impactful with your efforts, with your time, money, your resources. That is my strong suggestion to you. And I would say, yes, we need to be involved at a federal level. Yes, we need to be paying attention. But aside from being more focused on your individual, your senators and your congressmen, and having a relationship with their in-district office staff and letting them know, sending the emails or whatever on various specific bills. Yes, you could be doing that, but let's be honest, we're going to have the most impact where our voice is not one of millions, but one of thousands. So try to focus your efforts at the state or local effort levels at this point for 2026. That is my strong recommendation to you guys, and probably pick one or the other. Pick state or pick local and try to focus on that, because it is too hard and you can get lost in too much if you're trying to do it all. So for me, I think I'm going to probably try to focus more on some county or state level stuff this year, and try to narrow in my focus a little bit more. But anyway, that I just want you guys to really focus on that, because we can get overwhelmed with all that we have, all the choices that we have, all the things that are happening, all the ways that government goes wrong and steps outside of the bounds of their constitutional restraints. It happens all the time, every day, at every level, in every jurisdiction. And so we have an uphill battle, and it's important that we stay focused and we stay intentional and we not let it burn us out. So with that being said, I just want to remind you guys of our website, restorefreedomkh.com. Please go to that donate page, restorefreedomkh.com/donate, or you could go to restorefreedomkh.com/shop. You'll see 5 different types of items that you can purchase there, that some of them are even less than what we'll have out of pocket by the time we get the shipping included in there. But we just want to be able to share those things with you so you can in turn share the message of restoring our freedom all across the country. Most of the products have a QR code, or at least the website written into it, so that no matter where you are, somebody sees it, they see the bumper sticker, they see this t-shirt, they see whatever it is, they can scan the QR code or look up that website, do a quick Google search, find us, and be able to learn more about the law, the Constitution, and the proper role of government. I do have a lot of work I've been doing on the back end of our website, and trying to get more of those documents, like I mentioned. The one that dealt specifically with the city of Belding when I sued them about the FOIA thing, those kinds of documents, as well as the letters that I was writing to the county convention delegates, whatever, executive board members in Ottawa County in 2020. Those kinds of documents, they were originally on the website, and when we had the website crash, I think it was 2-3 years ago, and I had to rewrite it from scratch. Some of the old links and old documents didn't pull through, and I did not realize that. So I have recently found that, and I'm going through painstakingly and trying to find the originals and get them uploaded onto the website and in the right places, and finish filling things out. I've written some new pages that I've said coming soon for the last 4 years on the website. So I'm working diligently on that. I'm also looking at trying to clean up our videos, the posts that refer to videos on our website, so that you can have that as your one-stop shop for information, and then finish pulling over the rest of the videos. So anyway, doing a lot of the background work on there. So please keep checking for more information. If you want to take a look at any of those resources, that's that last link that's available on the screen right now, restorefreedomkh.com/resources. And like I said, I will continue to put more and more resources on there as the days go on. So with that being said, I didn't see any last, hold on. Oh, so nice, Milkman. I don't know who you are or why you've come here, but you say I'm so full of shit because I'm not taking questions. I'm trying to sell stuff. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm actually not going to make any money. The definition of selling is if I was going to make money. I'm actually passing them along at prices that are less than what I've paid for it, I'm losing money on that. That's not selling. So that's not a grifter. So anyway, if you have questions, and I looked through and I answered a lot of questions. So fortunately, Milkman, you apparently weren't paying attention, because the last hour and a half, that is all that I've done, is actually take questions from people. We've had people call in, and we've also had people ask questions in the chat. So in fact, we've had people call in from Pennsylvania, Colorado, and Michigan today. So anyway, with that being said, if you have questions, then, and I didn't even see, I thought I was answering all the questions. Looks like you might have asked questions later on when I was already talking. I don't even see, it must be that at this point they've been deleted or the person was banned or something. I didn't see what their questions were. So, okay. Anyway, with that being said, Milkman, I didn't see any questions that you put on there. I'm assuming you meant you had questions, and if you did, sorry that you asked them as I'm closing out the show for the day. But if you have questions, you can join us the second and fourth Tuesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time. Noon, not at 1:30. And that would be your best opportunity to get those questions asked. Especially the longer the question, the more involved, the more complicated. Please ask those at the beginning of the show so I have plenty of time to go into all that. I don't like to take the big questions at the very end because I don't want to have a 3 or 4 hour show. So with that being said, okay, sounds good. Yes, and I'm not currently taking any specific individual clients, and I don't have the ability to give out any specific attorney referrals. That information is listed right on the website as well. But I have a lot of information on there for you to be able to represent yourself, or to be able to be a little bit more informed so you can trust your instincts when you go and speak with an attorney to know whether that attorney is actually going to be serving your interests or not. Because that is important that you pick the right attorney, because there are a lot of really bad attorneys out there. There's people that are just money hungry, there's people that are just stupid, there's people that are lazy, and there's people that are downright corrupt. And when I say people, I'm talking about in the legal profession. So there's a lot of bad attorneys. Make sure you are picking an attorney that is going to serve your interests and do so within the bounds of what the Constitution provides for the proper role of government. So anything, all right. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is our second show of the month, so join us again for the second Tuesday in March, and we will be able to answer any more legal and constitutional questions. If you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, or if you did in the past and you're no longer getting it, sign back up, because this year we have a lot of stuff. I have posts out there virtually every day of the week. I think it's at least 5 days of the week, and those are standard. So we have everything from State Constitution Saturday postings to that freedom fighting tool I brought back on Fridays, Wellness Wednesdays, Throwback Thursdays, where I'm talking about, I think this week I talked about 2 or 3 different court cases, all on the same general issue of coining money. And things that relate to the Bitcoin debates these days and other things of that nature, cashless societies, all that nonsense. So take a look at the post that I had this week on Thursday about that. And anyway, if you haven't already signed up for that newsletter, you could do so at the footer on any page of our website, and or on the resources tab. But go ahead and sign up for that newsletter, and that way you'll be able to see all those posts for the week all in one place. Whether we've had a video or not, you'll at least see all the rest of the posts, and it'll pull in other posts that I've done if there's some brand new court case or ruling or something that we need to know about. Those will be in there as well as some of those shorter videos where I'm addressing some scenarios and things that have come up to my attention. So with that being said, all that stuff is free. So please avail yourself of any of that information and join us for our next live call-in show. And I look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.
Our work to restore freedom would not be possible without support from people just like you. From the various software and hardware needed to the legal research materials, every dollar you can donate helps. Make sure to like and share this video too. And remember to follow and subscribe and click that notification button. Together, we can restore freedom.